Welcome into SportsSource.tv. This is our overtime segment. We appreciate you joining us. Joined by Mike Griffith, Josh Ward, Jimmy Himes, Bob Hodge. Happy to have all these guys with me today. Happy you've clicked over to give this segment a watch. As you see right there on my desk, it's brought to you by Blue Smoke Cigar. I tell you about them every week. It's really a cool place. A lot of people got down there this past weekend to watch the British Open. Great. If you're a cigar smoker, it is a great place to go. They've got the private lockers. It's a club where you can buy a membership. Tremendous place to go with the HD TVs all over the place, the card rooms, the golf simulators. It's good stuff. Blue Smoke Cigar. Check it out. If you enjoy a cigar, that is the place to go and smoke one. All right. Jimmy, you reported this week that as of early last week, Monday or Tuesday, Tennessee's season ticket sales were about 69,000, which is the second highest number since 2007. Anybody here surprised? We'll start with that. Anybody surprised that the season tickets, after last year, so many people were disappointed? Anybody surprised the season tickets haven't dropped off more, or did you expect it to be this good?
I'm a little surprised it hasn't dropped off a little bit more because it keeps getting more expensive every year. And I think that if you combine that with mediocre expectations, I would think that it would back up a little bit more than it did.
I would have too. The one point, though, that would make me second guess that a little bit is I did see a poll where were you very satisfied or satisfied, whatever, with Butch Jones's career at Tennessee, and he had like an 80% approval. 80% approval. That's pretty strong. So now, there are a lot of others that 20% is pretty loud. Okay.
Yeah.
Very loud.
But having said that, I thought that there would be a bigger drop in season tickets.
See, to me, that you hit on. I think the season tickets, if you're looking for what that might tell us, tells us the people who are screaming for his head are not as big a crowd as they are a loud crowd. Mm-hmm. Because if people were as fired up as you think they are based on Twitter and talk radio, you wouldn't be selling seats like you're selling them. You guys surprised that season ticket sales are still in the high range? Or no?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. All the reasons given, plus the home schedule's not as inviting this year. You have
Zactamundo.
Yeah, you have Florida and Alabama that are both road games this year. So Georgia LSU is nice, but your non-conference games are not attractive.
State?
Yeah, excuse me. So I take it
Larry
all back.
Bird School, man.
Excuse me. Yeah,
Larry Bird
UMass. Yeah. Canby. So now I'm just naming facts with these schools that have nothing to do with football. But so add that in. That would surprise me as well.
Yeah, not a surprise for me. At the end of the day, what was Tennessee last year at home? 6-1, is that right? Mm-hmm. 15-4 over their last 19 games. I think only Alabama's better in the SEC than that. A stat Paul Feinbaum really hadn't paid much attention to, mysteriously, until after Butch Jones's visit to the car wash last week, John. We talked about that. Tennessee's winning more games, and Tennessee fans love football. And Neyland Stadium has improved. It's a better experience, and it's a part of the social fabric here in Knoxville. And unless that team's really bad, they're going to show up. Unless you put a really bad product on the field, people are going to show up at Neyland Stadium.
I'm going to assume I'm the only season ticket buyer here on the panel.
That would not be
Neyland
accurate.
Stadium. You buy season tickets? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm sorry.
There would be two.
Neyland Stadium improving. It may have improved if you're at a certain level, but for the guy like me who sits in the stands, it has gotten worse.
John Curry's coming. He's coming on the show.
I mean,
What's gotten worse?
they've taken away concession stands that used to be convenient for moi. They've taken away a bathroom that used to be convenient for moi. So I think for the average guy, and let's consider I'm the average guy, I think the experience has gotten worse. Now, if you're in club seats, if you're in skyboxes, if you can go into the places where they sell different kinds of food, okay, it has gotten a little bit better. But I don't think the experience has gotten better.
I know you've snuck in there too.
Well, I've tried anyway.
Let me ask you this though. Let's take a different direction. In terms of fans will show up, that's different than buying tickets, because plenty of people had bought tickets. We mentioned during the show the 2008 Alabama game. Yeah. People had bought tickets and sold them to Alabama folks. What does this number say to Butch Jones? Does the number of season tickets, it has to be weighed into the equation. If something goes wrong this year and John Curry is left trying to make some decision, I would say season ticket sales are going to be up there, as will donations and recruiting. Those kind of things will all play a role. But is it the tickets sold, or do you pay more attention to how many people are still going in November?
I'm paying attention to who's going in November.
Mm-hmm.
Look at when Derek Dooley was there were some crowds with 70,000 or less. Okay, and somebody challenged me on it, and I finally got somebody at UT to admit at one game, because I had estimated 60,000. I was wrong. It was 61. They know the numbers. They don't want to always
Sure they do.
publicize them, but they know the numbers. So if you start having 70,000 there, that's a huge concern. And I don't care how many season tickets you sell. If you start dropping to that area, you got a problem.
Because
I
it will
agree.
suggest these people aren't going to buy the tickets next year.
That's right.
Right, and I think the season tickets sold counts for now in terms of support
Yes.
in between the years heading into the year. But let's see what happens on the field, and let's see if that support holds. I think there'll be a really good crowd and a lot of support for the Georgia game for Tennessee. If Tennessee wins that, if Tennessee's 1-1, let's say it's split, Florida and Georgia, then I think you'll continue to see really good crowds. If Tennessee's 0-2, it's lost to the Gators and the Bulldogs, then watch out and see what the crowds are like after that.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, look, it's possible you could open the season 2 and 3. And it's
Right.
depending on the.
Yeah, Georgia Tech game matters too.
But I agree with Jimmy. See how many people are there for Vanderbilt? I mean, that to me is going to be the big thing.
I don't know those
because
Vanderbilt fans. They might, Derek Mason said at SEC Media Days, there's a happening there on West End. You better jump on now.
So all
700.
four of them come.
It's a miracle when they actually go across the west end of their own stadium. I wouldn't expect them to drop to Knoxville.
Yeah. Derek Mason also said nobody's cheating in the SEC. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Somebody check his phone and see what he's doing. Mike, your thoughts on does the ticket sales? How much does that impact Butch Jones? Do you agree with the rest of us that it's really going to depend on not just who's buying the ticket, but who's using them come year end?
I think it's cut and dry with wins and losses for Butch Jones. I think people want to see him win a certain number of games this year. I think the Board of Trustees and I think a lot of the boosters know that this is somewhat of a reload. But I guess I don't put as much stock into it. The Philip Fulmer deal, I think, was a little different. I think we all remember how Alabama took over the stadium. That was kind of the last straw. But part of that equation was that Tennessee actually believed that they were going to have a shot at hiring Bill Cowher before the end of the year. That was part of the problem. That's why they fired him prematurely. They didn't wait till the end of the year. They thought they were going to be able to hire somebody else. This is a little different. I don't even think they've moved on yet to who the next guy would be. Whereas I think with Fulmer they had.
Oh, I disagree with that. On the Cowher thing, I think Mike Hamilton got who he wanted.
You think it was Lane Kiffin all
All
along?
along.
I do. I do. I think Cowher was a pipe dream.
Yeah.
I think he got who he wanted and blew up.
Kiffin hire didn't work out.
He was a pipe dream, but I'll tell you who's not a pipe dream. And he was back in town this week meeting with Butch Jones. John Gruden was in town.
No, if
John
it was
Gruden
Mike
was in
Hamilton's hire, I'd agree with you, but I don't think Mike Hamilton was ultimately the one. I think that
Oh,
there
it was Mike Hamilton
Oh,
and Lane
I
Kiffin.
think
I think
it
there
was.
were people above that had
No.
people they wanted, and when they didn't get who
It
they
was
wanted,
Mike Hamilton.
that's who they ended up with. That's,
It
that's
was-
my theory.
Mi-
I
Mike,
don't see it that way.
Mike
Okay.
had the power on the first one. People blame him solely for Dooley. That's the one where he was stripped of a lot of his power. There were you had 4 planes flying all over the country. You had some coaching prospects. Well, if you want me, why am I talking to you and not the AD? I mean, it was committee that
And
was
the
doing
one-
that stuff. And Hamilton was here giving the sham interview to Kippy Brown while Derek Dooley was signing a paper with a couple other guys on their private plane down in Ruston. So
Which was Charlie Anderson and Jimmy Haslam.
yeah. So to me, it's Hamilton was Kiffin. Hamilton was in on Dooley, but I wouldn't blame him for Dooley. That was more of a committee thing. But the issue though, when you look at Tennessee and how you think it's going to be wins and losses only, I don't think it's ever just wins and losses. I think all these things factor
Yeah.
into it. If you're John Curry, and we could debate this all day and all night, it's year one. Do you really want to fire a football coach in year one? Well, if things are bad enough and he's sitting there thinking about it, let's say he wants to keep Butch Jones. He's going to be looking for reasons to keep Butch Jones, and season ticket sales might be one of them, or empty seats might be one of them. So I get what you're saying. It's more about wins and losses, because ultimately that will also affect the attendance.
Right.
But I think these other things do play into
Well,
it.
I think, and I also
some
think,
extent.
I also think Jimmy's right too about the Georgia game. I mean, if you've lost to Georgia Tech and you lost to Florida, you have an opportunity to have an early inkling of where your attendance is going.
That was Josh that made that point, wasn't it?
Oh, is it Josh? I'm sorry. I apologize, Josh. But I think you will have an early inkling of where things are going. Because, I mean, I've been at Georgia games before when Tennessee hadn't got off their great start, and I sat around a lot of Georgia people. And so I think if Tennessee does get off to that slow start and you start seeing the actual attendance at the games back off that early, I think it plays a role. I mean, it might be 5%, but it does play a role.
Well, because we might also have a pretty good idea what the team itself is after 5 weeks, after playing Georgia Tech, Florida, and Georgia.
It would have been interesting last year, if you remember, that stadium cleared out, and then after the game, everybody said, no, it was still jam-packed for the end of the Florida game. No, it wasn't. That place cleared out at halftime when Tennessee was getting bombed by Florida. If they don't turn that around and win that game, what's the attendance like for the rest of last year? You wonder. Because and so it can turn literally on a half of football.
I never understand how come people. How many times do I talk to you at halftime of a game and say, "My gosh, all these people are leaving," even if it's a good ball game.
Well, you left at the Arkansas game,
Then Arkansas.
or did you quit listening?
Oh,
98.
I was out in the woods. I was out in the
Out in the
woods.
woods. One other quick point I want to make, and you would look and say, okay, well, does the recruiting have an impact? And I would think it could. You got the number 3 or number 4 rated recruiting class right now in the country. All right. So do you want to get rid of that? But then I think, okay, John Curry was back there in 2008 when they got rid of Philip Fulmer. His class was number 6 in the country when they fired him. So is that going to make an impact on Curry? It didn't in 08 because he and Hamilton were driving the force to fire him. Would he look at that differently now? I don't know.
And would Butch Jones be able? Philip Fulmer had a long track record, so where you've got a bad year, you may be able to hold on to a recruiting class longer. If things go bad for Butch Jones this year, will he still have a fourth or third ranked recruiting class to worry about at that point, or will the guys have
Abandoned ship.
Yeah.
That's right.
Anybody want to close out? Griff, you got anything you want to throw
No,
out?
I'm on board. I mean, this hypothetical situation, hard to predict human behavior. I think the situations where maybe guys survive if they're losing is if they're, I had an AD one time tell me there's 4 kinds of coaches. Good guy winner, bad guy winner, good guy loser, bad guy loser, okay? Buzz Peterson was that good guy. Everybody loved Buzz, didn't they? But he just didn't win enough, all right? And then Jerry Green was the bad guy winner. Nobody really liked him, but he was a winner. Butch Jones right now, I don't think that fans view him enough as that good guy yet. I mean, in light of what happened to Hugh Freeze, maybe you should appreciate him more. But I don't think he has that charisma where you go, boy, but I just love him so much. So that's why I don't know if I think he could, if I think that, the tickets really factor that much. That's why I said wins and losses.
I forget what I read. That's interesting. I'm going to steer this into another quick topic here. That's good stuff. I read this week. A national writer, I should have printed that out, but a national writer wrote something about Butch Jones. He said, you'd be hard-pressed to find a writer who has many problems with Butch Jones. He's always affable and friendly. That is not the reputation that some people in town give him. Now, I've always thought that was kind of silly, that he's standoffish. He's cold to the reporters and stuff. I think he's guarded. I don't think he grabs great sound bites, obviously. But as we've said so many times on the show, for the guys that complain about it, go check out a Nick Saban press conference a time or two. I just thought it was interesting that a national writer this week, college football writer, put out there, and I'm sorry I don't have a name for it. I'll print that out and we'll do it next week. But to see a national writer say, well, you'd be hard-pressed to find a guy that doesn't like dealing with Butch Jones. He's a likable guy. Okay, you talk about he doesn't have the good guy reputation around here yet. I think that's true, and I don't know why.
Right.
I don't understand why.
Twitter.
And you get some, and the people doing the tweeting are some of these
This is
guys
what they
that
do.
don't have really big track records.
He has always struck me as a good guy. I think some of his quotes are silly, and I think they bit him in the butt, but that doesn't mean he's a bad guy. It means he just says some things that are silly and bit him in the butt.
I think he has a good character reputation.
Yeah.
I would also say that a lot of national writers sometimes find him annoying to deal with in a media setting, which are 2 different things. But in terms of just talking to him and being easy to talk to and him being willing to do that, I think they find that pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, you could go back, about the roughest I've seen him do was last year he said, okay, I've talked about Jalen Hurd, no more questions about Jalen Hurd. And the next guy said, about Jalen Hurd, he said, look, I just said no more questions about Jalen Hurd. And he moved on, and people around here gasped, like, oh my God,
I
what an
think
insult.
that's completely fair.
Yeah,
completely fair.
Have you watched anybody else's press conference?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm getting. I'm not saying he's a great soundbite.
Right,
he ain't.
right.
But, and I know that he doesn't want to give up anything. I think that's part of the soundbite deal that is my shell. That's his outer layer for some reason. So I get that. But in terms of being a rude, standoffish guy, I've seen Steve Spurrier throw guys out of the press conference and say he's an enemy of the program and stuff.
right.
That's totally different than what Butch Jones does.
And I will always go back to this. Peyton Manning senior year, ESPN, and they insulted him by calling him Gus Goodsport.
What? Gus Goodsport. I missed
Gus,
this.
Chris Fowler and that Gus Goodsport attitude of Peyton Manning's. That was an insult.
Goody two-shoes.
When you've got media who will insult people over stuff like that,
You're too
then
nice.
then it goes without saying that some people will be offended by basically anybody for anything.
Tim Tebow's a great example. I can't understand for the life of me why everybody just dumps on this guy. Don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get that one either. I understand he was built up. And it's one thing about Americans. The only thing we like better than building somebody up is tearing them back down. God, that's fun. It's the American pastime. It's replaced baseball. It's the drive behind Twitter.
Yeah.
Wait a minute,
It's
is
the
there
battery.
a hot seat list that just got released?
It's the
How
battery
many
in Twitter.
thousands
But
of
the
those?
whole Tim Tebow thing is that's another one. Good guys sometimes get picked on for being good guys. So,
Yeah.
all right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Mike, Josh, Jimmy, Bob, appreciate you all. We'll see you next Sunday. We're going to do, I mentioned it during the show today, we're going to do a fantasy draft. It's really a cool way to look back at the talent at Tennessee over the last 25 years. We're going to do a fantasy draft. We're not going to draft 5 offensive linemen. It's not going to bore you to death. But we are going to take people from different positions and create a core of a team and then see who's got the best core team based on what these guys did at UT. I think it'll be a fun way to look back at the past. And also, if there's breaking news, of course, we'll cover that. Sports Source, we'll see you next Sunday, 11 a.m., WATE 6. Thank you. Thank our sponsors. Thanks, Blue Smoke Cigar.